welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Naurin. In today's bulletin, we will get you detailed news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Kemp Abrams argue abortion, voting in Georgia governor debate. South Carolina's Mace gets boost from McCarthy Gabbard. Black church tradition survives Georgia's voting changes. Family in Oklahoma murdered suicide faced financial pressures. Musk tweets linked to an unfounded conspiracy theory. Supreme Court takes up race-conscious college admissions. Supreme Court rejects Turkey's bid to stop US brawl lawsuits. South Korea probes Halloween crowd surge as nation mourns. Nine arrested after bridge collapses in India, killing 134. Concerns rise as Russia resumes grain blockade of Ukraine. Heavy Russian barrage on Ukraine, no water for most of Kiev. Brazil's Lula to reclaim presidency after beating Bolsonaro. Somalia car bombings kill at least 100, President says. Black Adams takes top spot at box office again. And McCaffrey does it all, leads 49ers to another win over Rams. Now news in detail. Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp and Democratic challenger Stacey Abrams traded harsh attacks on Georgia's elections during the pair's final debate before Georgia's November 8 election, while elaborating on their positions on abortion and offering sharply differing visions for the state's economy. Kemp avoided a categorical promise not to sign further abortion restrictions, saying Sunday, "It's not my desire to go move the needle any further." But he acknowledged that more restrictions might be passed by a Republican legislature, saying that "we will look at those when the time comes." Abrams pointed out that equivocation, saying, "Let's be clear, he did not say he wouldn't." Kemp criticized Abrams as inconsistent on what restrictions she would support. Abrams argued she had not changed her position and said she would support legal abortion until a fetus is viable outside the womb. Kemp denied claims by Democrats that under Georgia's abortion restrictions, which restrict most abortions after cardiac activity can be detected in the womb, women could be prosecuted for abortions or investigated after miscarriages. The governor revealed that his wife had miscarried one of what had been twins, while the other survived to become his eldest daughter, calling it a tragic, traumatic situation. Republican U.S. Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina is getting a boost from House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and other political figures in the closing week before the midterm elections, as she seeks a second term representing her fast-growing district. On Wednesday, Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, the Cuban-American politician who currently serves as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, will appear with Mace at an event in Mount Pleasant near Charleston, Mace's campaign told the Associated Press. A day later, former Representative Tulsi Gabbard, who represented Hawaii as a Democrat but recently announced she was leaving the party, is holding a campaign rally with maize at a restaurant in Mount Pleasant. On Saturday, McCarthy Arcalif will stamp for maize at a downtown Charleston fundraiser expected to bring in $100,000 according to her campaign. Black church leaders and activists in Georgia rallied Sunday in a push to get congregants to vote, a long-standing tradition known as Souls to the Polls that is taking on greater meaning this year amid new obstacles to casting a ballot in the midterm elections. At Rainbow Baptist Church just outside Atlanta, about 24 cars and a large bus emblazoned with the image of civil rights icon John Lewis formed a caravan in the parking lot. Teresa Hardy, an organizer with voting rights group the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, led a prayer before the caravan set out for a polling site at a nearby mall. Few people in the group actually cast a ballot there, but organizers said it was important to promote voting, particularly in the wake of new restrictions enacted by the state legislature. Republicans said Georgia's new law was necessary to restore confidence in the state's election system. Civil rights advocates saw it as an attack on black voters, who helped Democrats win the presidential contest in Georgia in 2020 for the first time since 1992 and later take the state's 2 U.S. Senate seats. They are pushing back by redoubling efforts to turn out black voters. An Oklahoma couple considered primary suspects in last week's killings of their 6 children faced growing financial pressures, and the husband experienced recurring pain from a workplace head injury, according to family members. 8 people were found dead Thursday in a burning home in a Tulsa area suburb in what authorities are investigating as a murder-suicide. The Broken Arrow Police Department on Sunday identified the 2 adults as Brian and Brittany Nelson, but provided no new information on whether both adults were involved in the killings of the children, who ranged in age from 1 to 13. Brian Nelson's parents, Danny and Marilyn Nelson, told the Tulsa World that their son had asked if they could babysit their grandchildren at 5 p.m. Thursday, the day of the fire. Police have not released the names of the children who died, but the Nelsons identified them as grandson Brian, age 13, granddaughter Brantley, age 9, grandsons Vegeta, 7, Ragnar, 5 years old, and Kurgan, 2 years old, and granddaughter Britannica, 1 year old. Elon Musk on Sunday tweeted a link to an unfounded rumor about the attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, just days after Musk's purchase of Twitter fueled concerns that the social media platform would no longer seek to limit misinformation and hate speech. Musk's tweet, which he later deleted, linked to an article by a French website, the Santa Monica Observer, an outlet that has previously asserted that Hillary Clinton died on September 11 and was replaced with a body double. In this case, the article recycled a baseless claim that the personal life of Paul Pelosi, the speaker's husband, somehow played a role in an intruder's attack last week in the couple's San Francisco home, even though there is no evidence to support that claim. Musk did so in reply to a tweet by Hillary Clinton. Her tweet had criticized Republicans for generally spreading hate and deranged conspiracy theories and said it is shocking but not surprising that violence is the result. In response to Clinton's tweet, Musk provided a link to the Santa Monica Observer article and added, "There is a tiny possibility there might be more to this story than meets the eye." The Los Angeles Times, the dominant news organization in the Southern California area where the Observer is located, has said the Observer is notorious for fake news. Police in San Francisco have said the suspect in last week's attack, identified as David DePape, 42 years old, broke into the Pelosi family's Pacific Heights home early Friday and confronted Paul Pelosi. The Supreme Court wrestled with persistent, difficult questions of race Monday debating whether to end the use of affirmative action in higher education. The justices scheduled at least an hour and 40 minutes of arguments and were hearing from 6 different lawyers in challenges to policies at the University of North Carolina and Harvard. Those policies consider race among many factors in evaluating applications for admission. Following the overturning of the half-century precedent of Roe v. Wade in June, the cases offer a big new test of whether the court, now dominated by conservatives, will move the law to the right on another of the nation's most contentious cultural issues. The Supreme Court on Monday rejected Turkey's bid to shut down lawsuits in US courts stemming from a violent brawl outside the Turkish ambassador's residence in Washington more than 5 years ago that left anti-government protesters badly beaten. The justices did not comment in turning away Turkey's arguments that American law shields foreign countries from most lawsuits. Lower courts ruled that those protections did not extend to the events of May 16, 2017, when during a visit by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkish security forces violently clashed with a crowd of protesters, as one judge described the situation. The Supreme Court's action allows the lawsuits to proceed. In the lawsuits, protesters claim they were brutally punched and kicked, cursed at and greeted with slurs and throat-slashing gestures. One woman slipped in and out of consciousness and has suffered seizures, and others reported post-traumatic stress, depression, concussions, and nightmares, according to the complaints. The High Court had put off a decision about whether to intervene for months, asking for the Biden administration's views on the legal issues presented. Turkey can be sued in these circumstances, the Justice Department said in its High Court filing, concluding that lower courts were correct in finding that the US ally does not have legal immunity. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 14,747.22. The NYSE Composite is decreased by 48.41 points or 0.33%. Hong Kong stock close price is 14,687.02. The Hang Seng Index is decreased by 176.04 points or 1.18%. Shanghai stock close price is 2,893.4829. The Shanghai Composite Index is decreased by 22.44 points or 0.77%. Tokyo stock close price is 27,587.46. The Sensex Index is increased by 482.26 points or 1.78%. Bombay stock close price is 60,746.59. The Sensex Index is increased by 786.74 points or 1.31%. Now it's time for global updates. World leaders expressed sadness and condolences after at least 151 people were killed in a crowd surge Saturday night in Seoul, South Korea. The tragedy occurred in Seoul's Itaewon district during Halloween festivities when a huge crowd surged into a narrow downhill alley. At least 82 others were injured in the South Korea's deadliest accident in years. US President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden sent their deepest condolences to the families of the deceased. We grieve with the people of the Republic of Korea and wish for a quick recovery to all those who were injured, said President Biden in a tweet. The United States stands with the Republic of Korea during this tragic time. Similarly, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak described the news from Seoul as horrific on Twitter. South Korean police investigated on Monday what caused a crowd surge that killed more than 150 people, including 26 foreigners, during Halloween festivities in Seoul, in the country's worst disaster in years, as President Yoon Suk Yeol and tens of thousands of others paid respects to the dead at special mourning sites. Saturday's disaster was concentrated in a sloped, narrow alley in Seoul's Itaewon neighborhood, a popular nightlife district, with witnesses and survivors recalling a hell-like chaos with people falling on each other like dominoes. They said the entire Itaewon area was jammed with slow-moving vehicles and partygoers clad in Halloween costumes, making it impossible for rescuers and ambulances to reach the cramped alleys in time. Police said they have launched a 475-member task force to investigate the crash. Military teams were searching Monday for people missing after a 143-year-old suspension bridge collapsed into a river Sunday in the western Indian state of Gujarat, sending hundreds plunging into the water and killing at least 133 in one of the country's worst accidents in years. As families mourned the dead, attention was turning to why the bridge, built by the British in the late 1800s and touted as an engineering marvel, collapsed and who might be responsible. The local government had awarded a 15-year contract to maintain and manage the bridge to a Morbi-based company, Ajanta Manufacturing Private Limited, mainly known for making clocks, mosquito rackets and electric bikes. It reopened the bridge, which spans a wide section of the Machu River, on October 26. That's the first day of the Gujarati New Year, which coincides with the Hindu festival season, and the newly reopened attraction drew hundreds of sightseers. Authorities said the structure collapsed under the weight of hundreds of people. Security footage of the disaster showed bridge shaking violently and people trying to keep hold of its cables and green-colored metal fencing before the aluminium walkway gave way and crashed into the river. Visuals from the disaster site showed the bridge split in the middle and the metal walkway hanging down. Its cables snapped in places. At least 177 survivors were pulled from the river and teams from the Army, Navy and Air Force were looking for others still missing, said Jigar Khund, an information department officials in Gujarat. Russia resumed its blockade of Ukrainian ports on Sunday, cutting off urgently needed grain exports to hungry parts of the world in what US President Joe Biden called a really outrageous act. Biden warned that global hunger could increase because of Russia's suspension of a UN-brokered deal to allow safe passage of ships carrying grain from Ukraine, one of the world's breadbaskets. It's really outrageous, Biden said in Wilmington, Delaware. There is no merit to what they are doing. The UN negotiated that deal and that should be the end of it. Biden spoke hours after Russia announced it would immediately halt participation in the grain deal, alleging that Ukraine staged a drone attack Saturday against Russia's Black Sea fleet off the coast of occupied Crimea. Ukraine has denied the attack, saying that Russia mishandled its own weapons. Ukraine's infrastructure ministry reported Sunday that 218 ships involved in grain exports have been blocked, 22 loaded and stuck at ports, 95 loaded and departed from ports, and 101 awaiting inspections. A massive barrage of Russian strikes hit critical infrastructure in Kiev, Kharkiv and other Ukrainian cities on Monday morning, knocking out water and power supplies in apparent retaliation for what Moscow alleged was a Ukrainian attack on its Black Sea fleet over the weekend. Russia has intensified its attacks on Ukraine's power plants and other key infrastructure as the war enters its 9th month. Large parts of Ukraine are already experiencing rolling power cuts as a result of Russia's strategy. Russia's defense ministry said its forces carried out strikes with long-range, high-precision air and sea-based weapons against the military command and energy systems of Ukraine. The goals of the strikes were achieved. All designated targets were hit, the ministry said in a statement. Meanwhile, 12 ships with grain left Ukrainian ports on Monday, despite a Russian threat to reimpose a blockade that threatened hunger across the world, Ukraine's Ministry of Infrastructure said. One vessel carried Ukrainian wheat to Ethiopia, where a severe drought is affecting millions of people. Ukraine's Air Force said it shot down 44 of more than 50 cruise missiles that were launched by Russia. Brazilians delivered a very tight victory to Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in a bitter presidential election, giving the leftist former president another shot at power in rejection of incumbent Jair Bolsonaro's far-right politics. Da Silva received 50.9% of the vote and Bolsonaro 49.1%, according to the country's election authority. Yet the morning after the results came in, and congratulations had poured in from world leaders, Bolsonaro still had yet to publicly concede or react in any way, even as truckers blockaded some roads across the country in protest. Bolsonaro's campaign had made repeated, unproven claims of possible electoral manipulation before the vote, raising fears that if he lost, he would not accept defeat and try to challenge the results. For Da Silva, the high-stakes election was a stunning comeback. His imprisonment for corruption sidelined him from the 2018 election won by Bolsonaro, who has used the presidency to promote conservative social values while also delivering incendiary speeches and testing democratic institutions. At least 100 people were killed in two car bombings at a busy junction in the capital, Somalia's president said. And the toll could rise in the country's deadliest attack since a truck bombing at the same spot 5 years ago killed more than 500. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, at the site of Saturday's explosions in Mogadishu, told journalists that nearly 300 other people were wounded. We ask our international partners and Muslims around the world to send their medical doctors here since we can't send all the victims outside the country for treatment, he said. The Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab extremist group, which often targets the capital and controls large parts of the country, claimed responsibility, saying its objective was to hit the education ministry. It claimed the ministry was an enemy base that receives support from non-Muslim countries and is committed to removing Somali children from the Islamic faith. Black Adam, the Dwayne Johnson-fronted DC superhero film, kept its hold on the #1 spot at the North American box office in its second weekend in theaters, down 59% from its launch and facing little new competition. Black Adam added 27.7 million in ticket sales, bringing its domestic total to 111.1 million, according to studio estimates Sunday. Johnson spent a decade trying to bring the character to the big screen and has visions for follow-ups involving Superman. But the future of Black Adam is not written quite yet, though it's earned $250 million worldwide. The Warner Bros. Film carried a hefty price tag of $200 million, not including marketing and promotion costs, and a sequel has not been officially greenlit. Now a look of today's sports story. Christian McCaffrey became the 11th player in NFL history with a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown and a receiving touchdown in one game, and the San Francisco 49ers extended their regular season mastery over the Rams to 4 full years with a 31-14 victory over Los Angeles on Sunday. McCaffrey threw a 34-yard TD pass to Brandon Ayuk in the first half, caught a TD pass from Jimmy Garoppolo in the third quarter, and then put the Niners in control with a TD run early in the fourth. Garoppolo passed for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns as San Francisco scored 24 unanswered points to finish its 8th consecutive regular season victory over its NFC West rivals. McCaffrey finished with 94 yards rushing and 55 yards receiving in his second game with the Niners. LaDainian Tomlinson was the last player with rushing, passing and receiving TDs in the same game, doing it for San Diego back in 2005. The 49ers outbid the Rams last week in a trade for McCaffrey's services, and the versatile running back showed Los Angeles exactly what it missed. Now a look of today's weather chart. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest updates. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV. And also in all European countries and Australia available with the Sky Network, Worldwide Jago TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.